JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is a 33-year continuing series in Ultra Jump, and the 6-part Stone Ocean is by far one of the most underrated manga that I've ever seen. Hirohiko Araki wrote Stone Ocean from 2000 to 2003, and was the 6th part in the JoJo's series, coming right off of Part 5 Golden Wind. For anyone who hasn't seen JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, watch the video in the description. It doesn't cover Part 5, but that part has nothing that comes back into this part, so you're all good. Without further ado, let's get into the review. When writing Part 6, Araki wanted to create a female character who could fight and take hits just like the guy characters. In the past, Araki was very progressive when writing JoJo, and for Part 6, Araki wanted to show that there isn't a difference between men and women. To take a quote from Araki's book, Manga in Theory and Practice, in JoJo's 6th arc, Stone Ocean, I created a female protagonist named Jolene, and the only difference in the way that I handled her as opposed to a male protagonist was not to draw her quite as beaten up, but she faces battles every bit as brutal as the male characters who came before. Presently, if anything sets apart male and female characters, it's only visual. Because Part 6 featured a mostly female cast in a teen boys magazine in the early 2000s, it didn't do so well when being published, but Araki didn't budge and kept with his wishes to write Part 6 with a mostly female cast, except for one time, but I'll get to that later. And because Part 6 got serialized in North America late enough for the amazingly received Part 7 to be out, people over here speed read through Part 6, so Part 6 didn't get appreciated anywhere. Before I summarize Stone Ocean, I'm going to talk about some of the connections I made when reading this book so that you can understand the story better through other texts. The first is that Part 6 is very similar to Part 3, Stardust Crusaders. In fact, it feels very much like a sequel to Stardust Crusaders. Things like the main character trying to save their parent and the villain following Part 3 Dio's plan, those are just a couple reasons why Stone Ocean feels like Stardust Crusaders too, and I'll talk more about the comparisons later. The other comparison I made is that Stone Ocean is not like other prison stories. It's not about breaking out of prisons or getting revenge. Stone Ocean is about Jolene Kujo finding her father's memories. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 6 Stone Ocean starts with Jolene Kujo being framed for murder in Florida 2011 and being betrayed by her boyfriend and lawyer, so she is sent to Green Dolphin Street Prison to serve her prison time. But when being transported to the prison, Jolene tries meeting with her father to help her, but instead of showing up, JoJo sends a proxy to give Jolene a medallion on which she cuts her finger and gains a stand. Jolene gains a stand from the medallion because inside it is a piece of the stand arrow. Eventually, Jotaro Kujo meets with his daughter in the prison with the intention of breaking her out with his stand. But in doing so, Jotaro loses his stand and memory from attack from Whitesnake. Jolene then tries to take back Jotaro's stand from Pucci to save his life, but in doing so, she gets sent to the punishment ward. Jolene was framed by Pucci so then he could get Jotaro's memory to attain heaven. Jotaro read the journal of Vampire Dio. The journal had instructions to attain heaven, but Jotaro burned it, so the only way to get that information was from Jotaro's memory. As Jolene is in the punishment ward, Pucci does a ritual using Dio's bone to create the green baby, then fuses with it to form his new stand, Made in Heaven, to attain heaven, and the rest is spoilers. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure first started as a manga of huge men fighting each other, but in the mid-90s that all changed when Araki started making his characters more feminine and focused more on fashion. So in 2000, when Part 6 was being published, Araki changed the formula even more and created a female main character. Jolene Kujo was a protagonist starring in a magazine for teen males. Jolene was also very strong and could take a hit. And one of the reasons why she is such a great character is because Araki didn't make a conventional character when creating Jolene Kujo. Araki made a character that was tough and could duke it out, but unlike other female characters in action movies that are basically guys with breasts, Jolene is a true strong female character. A strong female character is a hard thing to define. You think that there are female characters that are strong, stand up for themselves, and act just like men. But you would be wrong. A strong female character is a character with inner strength, and most importantly, they use their femininity to their advantage and to take care of others. A good example of a true strong female character is Ripley from the Alien franchise, because she's strong yet doesn't forget her femininity. But even though that's what I would define as a true strong female character, not all good women characters need to be feminine. Jolene is a true strong female character because she can duke it out and is still feminine, like when she comforted Emporio at the end of Part 6. Jolene also inherited a characteristic that mostly women would get, so when Araki decided to make a female protagonist, you could tell he didn't just make a guy with breasts. That characteristic is her amplified sex drive, which is a characteristic that most women usually get if they have an absent father. I'm not going to claim to be a psychologist, but apparently women with absent fathers use sex as a replacement for their fathers. The reason why this works so well is because with her character, Jolene hates her father, and that's a huge part of her backstory. She hates her father because he was always too busy to be with her, and that is also why she rebels so much. Jolene's stand has the ability to make string from her body, being able to create things like bulletproof vests and nets. Stands are all named after something, and it's usually a musical reference. Jolene's stand is named Stone Free, a song by Jimi Hendrix. The meaning of her stand's name is about how Araki wanted to create a different type of character and didn't care what other people thought. You can tell this because Stone Free is a song about living the way you want to live, and not letting anyone judge you. With lyrics like, I don't want to be down, I just gotta move on. There are connections between Jimi Hendrix and Jolene, like Jimi Hendrix was known for being a left-handed guitarist, but playing a right-handed guitar upside down and restrung. So Jimi Hendrix was different from the average guitarist, and Jolene is different from the average JoJo protagonist by being a female. Other connection is that Jimi Hendrix was arrested for stealing a car, and so was Jolene. Stone Free is about living your life free, and Jolene uses her stand, Stone Free, to escape from the prison and become free from her fate. Jotaro is the father of Jolene Kujo and marine biologist. His stand, Star Platinum, has one of the strongest abilities. It can temporarily stop time for 1 second, which is the reason why Pucci had to frame Jolene to get him in prison, so he can control the environment and steal Jotaro's memory. I'm not going to go in depth on Jotaro's character in this review, but if I were to make a review on part 3 or part 4, I would. After killing Dio in part 3, Jotaro read Dio's diary and learned that Dio's plan to attain heaven then burned the book. So only he knows the plan, which is the reason why Pucci wants to steal Jotaro's memory. Jolene thinks that Jotaro is a bad father because he is never there for her, but there is a reason that Jotaro avoids Jolene. It is because she didn't have a stand from birth and only got one in prison. So before that, she didn't have a stand to protect herself, and because of the rule that stand users attract one another, and there are many of Dio's followers around Jotaro, it would be unsafe to stay around Jolene. But you can tell that Jotaro does love Jolene because there are 2 instances where Jotaro could kill Pucci and end his plan, but decides to save Jolene instead. The first is when Pucci and Jolene are fighting, and Jolene is barely alive and only doing so because she made a Mobius strip in her body. Jotaro stops time, and instead of killing Pucci when he had a chance, he saves Jolene. The second is at the climactic battle against Pucci. Jotaro has a plan to kill him, but because he's 2 steps behind Pucci, he stops time and finds that Pucci threw 30 or so knives at Jolene. So once again, instead of killing Pucci, he saves Jolene, only this time he dies because of it. We can all make a connection with Anasui because Anasui is the embodiment of the nice guy culture that has become more apparent in the 2000s. He only does things to make Jolene like him and is mean to everyone else. Anasui also hates whenever Jolene talks and is nice to other guys. One of the things that makes Anasui so scary is that after finding out that his girlfriend cheated on him, he killed her and the guy who had sex with his girlfriend, landing him in prison, which Jolene resides. So to review, Anasui's character is a simp cuck. Originally, Anasui was a female character, but after bad reception from readers, Araki was forced by his editors to change Anasui's gender to male. Well, at least that is how the story goes. Araki was forced to change Anasui's character because there were too many main female characters, and because the part 6 wasn't doing so well, editors thought it would be better to change the gender. When Araki gets passionate about something in his manga, he sticks with his guns and refuses to change it. Like when editors told him to change Josuke's hair because it was outdated, but Araki fought it and kept the pompadour on Josuke. Anasui's stand has the ability to dive down into objects and pull stuff through them, like pulling a person through a wall. This leads to one of the funniest panels in JoJo, where Anasui steals money from a cash register while distracting the store owner. The second ability comes from his phasing ability, is that he can store and release energy within objects. Anasui's stand name is Diver Down. It's got 2 meanings. The first and most obvious is that his ability is to dive down into objects. The second is that Diver Down was an album by Van Halen, which featured a cover of Pretty Woman. This is notable because in the music video of Pretty Woman, a trans woman was featured, and that's a reference to Anasui's gender being changed. I don't have a lot of information on Hermes' musical reference, so her character analysis might be a bit shorter. Hermes got caught in a bit of trouble with the mob, and because of that, a gangster named Sportsmax killed her sister. Hermes purposely sent herself to prison so she could kill the incarcerated Sportsmax. While in prison, Hermes meets Jolene and attains a stand. Hermes' stand ability is when she places a sticker on something, it creates a duplicate, and when she takes the sticker off, the object gets destroyed. Hermes' stand is named Kiss after the band Kiss, obviously. Hermes' stand might be named Kiss because the stickers have lips on them, and the act of them coming back together is like them kissing. Emporio's a kid inside the prison who's been there his whole life and has been able to do so without being found because of his stand burning down the house. Burning down the house's ability is to recreate any room that has been destroyed, like if they were burned down, bulldozed, or just renovated. The prison in which Emporio resides in was previously burnt down, which is why Emporio can hide so well in his ghost rooms, because there are so many. Only people who Emporio lets into his ghost rooms may enter, and while Emporio can take anything out of his ghost room, they do not affect any real object. Emporio mostly uses his ghost computer to research stuff to help his friends in battle. Burning down the house is named so because of its ability to recreate destroyed rooms, but it's also named after the song of the same name. Foo Fighters is a character that is made up of only plankton and has the same name of her stand. Foo Fighters' ability is that she has intelligence and can think freely. Foo Fighters starts off as a mere plankton, and when given her stand by Poochie becomes intelligent, but follows Poochie's order with no free will of her own, until she meets Jolene and learns that even though she gained intelligence and free will from her stand, she has no free will if she just obeys Poochie. So she befriends Jolene and Hermes, and defies Poochie. Foo Fighters only cares about her friends and protecting her free will that she has gained. Foo Fighters is named after the band Foo Fighters. The character was named after the band because just like how she came from experimentation from Poochie, Foo Fighters the band was created from Dave Grohl experimenting with music to cope with the suicide of one of his best friends. Just like how Foo Fighters stand became a part of her, Foo Fighters eventually became a part of Dave Grohl. Weather Report also has the same name as his stand. To keep his reveal from being spoiled, I won't talk much about him. Weather Report is a man with no memories who somehow got in prison. He doesn't know who he is or why he's in prison, though he doesn't seem to mind that because he just hangs out with Emporio and Anasiri most of the time. Weather Report's stand ability is to control the weather. By doing that, he can create storms, make it rain frogs, control the atmosphere, and much, much more. Weather Report is named after the band of the same name. Poochie was a follower and very close friend of Dio. When Dio died, Poochie scrambled to put together a plan to attain heaven just like he and Dio planned. To do this, he must learn the ritual to attain heaven from the memory of Jotaro Kujo. One important note from Poochie's character is that he's a priest, and that goes together with his character because he sees Dio like a god. This leads Poochie to being like a preacher for Dio, and following his will even after death. It also fits because Poochie is a follower of Dio, and Dio in Italian means God, so Poochie is a literal follower of God in two ways. Poochie's stand is Whitesnake, and is named after the band AC/DC. Nah, just kidding, it's named after Whitesnake. Whitesnake's ability is to take away aspects of things using discs, so he can take away memories, stands, sight, and more. A weakness of Part 6 is that the setting is mostly the same place. The fact that Stone Ocean is placed in a prison makes it much more boring when the backgrounds all look the same. It also makes it hard to write around the rules of a prison. One of the biggest strengths of Stone Ocean is the art. This is the last part before Rocky started publishing monthly. Even though that decision gave him a lot more time to work on his art, the fast pace and how much he had to draw as well as the experience before Part 6 fine-tuned his art. That is why the art is so good in Part 6. To wrap it all up, what you should take away is that Part 6 is an underrated manga. It was also very progressive and failed from a sales standpoint because of it, but succeeded from a writing standpoint because of it. That was my review of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 6 Stone Ocean. Hope anyone who comes across this review liked it.